The end of the earth. If ever a land deserved this title, it is Mongolia. This country has come to mean isolation and mystery. Attila the Hun roamed here. It was once the center of the largest empire in the world, ruled by Genghis Khan. This is a country locked between two giants, Russia and China. It has no ocean and little rain. This is a climate of high winds and strong sunlight. In this environment, a people have endured, almost unchanged, for thousands of years. They are the nomads, migrating with their livestock and living close to nature. Their culture is deeply influenced by the natural forces. Mongolia is the quintessential faraway place, surrounded in mystery and legend, and because of its isolation, it is rarely explored. We came to Mongolia to explore a country that has seen little influence by the outside world. Until recently, visitation has been restricted. The former communist-run government prohibited travel even for its own people. But now, travel restrictions have been lifted. We've assembled an international group of journalists in the capital city, Ulan Bator, to attempt a trip that has never been done before. This will be a 1,000-mile journey from the Siberian border in the north to the Gobi Desert in the south, close to China. We must charter a Russian-made helicopter to fly to our starting point. It will be a journey through the most desolate territory in the world. The pilots navigate with whatever they can get their hands on. It appears Mongolia has a different code dictating flight safety. Extra fuel is stored in a tank in the passenger cabin. This will be a non-smoking flight. The first impression is one of vast emptiness. The terrain resembles North America with one notable exception. There are no traces of civilization. No roads, no fences. There are occasional glimpses of cattle and sheep, and a lone wolf confused by the unfamiliar sounds from above. Our destination is Lake Hovskol, near the Russian border. It is mid-May, and the lake is just beginning to thaw. We are met by our Mongolian guides in two Land Rover Discoveries, which have been brought here by train across Russia. Leading the expedition is Mr. Chimid Sarin, known as Chimid, geologist, paleontologist, and surprisingly, our chef. He spends his time searching for dinosaur bones and promises to show us the Mongolia that few outsiders have ever seen. We will spend the first night in a camp along the lake shore. Chimid sketches the route with Tom Collins, his American adventure counterpart.
According to GPS, along the river...
Even though Tom has brought along outdated U.S. military maps and a sophisticated GPS, Chimid's navigational tool is his memory, filled with past journeys for field work.
Maybe part of this river.
But this expedition will be a first for Chimid.
How many hours?
Maybe 1 hour. It's a good road.
Even though the Gobi lies almost 1,000 miles directly south, the route is not so simple. There are only 600 miles of paved roads in Mongolia, and virtually none on this trip. Most of the route will be on dirt tracks that the nomads have used for centuries. The size of Mongolia compares to a stretch from the eastern seaboard of the United States west to the Mississippi River. It is one of the highest countries in the world, averaging over a mile in elevation. For most of the year, the harsh and desolate appearance belies the hidden beauty of this bleak landscape. This is nature at the extreme. Winter temperatures plummet to 30 below zero Fahrenheit. Summer in the Gobi can reach 120. Nature has created a very fragile environment, and due to Mongolia's isolation, it is perhaps one of the last unaltered ecosystems in the Northern Hemisphere. The natural beauty and isolation has had a profound effect on Mongolians. In the case of Genghis Khan, it spawned the motivation to explore what lay beyond. He not only explored it, he conquered it, creating an empire that stretched across 2 continents, from Siberia to Austria, Hong Kong to Baghdad. The secret weapon that created this vast dominion was not a weapon at all, but the Mongolian horse. Unlike camels, horses could travel great distances at high speeds. A Mongol could ride for many days without supplies. For nourishment, he carefully slit a vein in the horse's leg and drank the blood. The culture still revolves around the horse, though with peaceful intent. It is the primary mode of transportation, this, the last extensive horse-based culture in the world. With only 2.4 million people spread across this vast land, Mongolia is one of the least densely populated countries in the world. On average, about 1 person per square mile. 40% of the population chooses to live in the countryside, relying entirely on their animals for survival. Dairy products are the primary foods. Wool from the sheep is used to make felt to cover the ger, the traditional Mongolian dwelling. To keep their animals healthy, good grazing is vitally important. And And so, these people are nomads, moving frequently to fresh ground. They fold their houses and pack them onto the carts, along with all their worldly possessions. With so few people, a herdsman often makes only a brief trip to a neighboring valley for new grazing. There is no property ownership in the countryside, no fences marking territory. The land belongs to anyone who chooses to make this home. Many people consider Babylon to have been the cradle of civilization. But others believe that it is actually Mongolia which holds the origins of mankind, citing cave dwellings and stone tools 500,000 years old. Some scientists speculate that Native Americans are descendants of the Mongols. In the mountains around Lake Hovsgol lives a tribe of nomads who give credibility to this theory. Few Westerners have ever seen them, and we hear rumors that they are nearby. The Satan, or reindeer herders, are a nomadic tribe facing extinction. Because they choose this life tied solely to the reindeer, living conditions are difficult. There are only 30 to 40 families left. Those remaining roam this frigid region to find the lichen for the reindeer to eat, crossing freely into Siberia and back. They live in felt teepees. Any contact with the outside world brings welcome relief to their hard life, and we offer them small gifts.
What's her name? The baby's name?
Uvgunhu.
Oginku?
Uvgunhu.
Uvgunhu?
If you translate it literally, Uvgun means old man and Hu means boy. So it's old man boy.
They have little income and cannot easily buy supplies. Despite their meager means, they welcome us with refreshment, the traditional tea-based drink called sute sa. This traditional beverage is made by brewing tea stems and adding reindeer milk, salt, butter, fat, and flour. It tastes just as the name sounds.
Reindeer.
Багад бидний ямар амьдрал юм уусаад явах үндэс ч байхгүй. Зардал мөнгө төгрөг байхгүй.
When people come, it's easier because the day passes quicker. So it means like they want the days go faster. So, I don't know.
Яаж ядаадийнхэн байгаа мөрөнгөгээ төвөж хасан гэж бодсон ч мөнгө төгрөг байхгүй.
They say actually the life of the reindeer people is very hard because every time you have to move and there are days when they're really tired and but they have to get some flour, salt, the basic things to buy, but no cash money. And really it's sometimes really difficult, but that's the way. More or less they can live, but it's hard.
We make camp on the bank of a river.
Ah, kaboom.
Jimid and his crew prepare the evening meal. Mongolian food is quite different from other Asian cuisine. It consists basically of meat and dairy products. There are few, if any, vegetarians in Mongolia. One must submit to 3 styles of cooking: boiled mutton, and something called budog. On special occasions, a marmot is slaughtered and the neck slit. The cook extracts the innards and replaces them with hot stones. The animal is tossed into a hot fire, fur and all, and delicately roasted. Fortunately, Jimid modifies the menu for the uninitiated. The nomads. Somehow, they know there are strangers in their midst, and in this case, it is the music that draws them near. A tape of old disco tunes blared from our Land Rover and attracted the village teenagers. We're not sure if they ever saw Saturday Night Fever under their former communist leaders, but we are sure they understood the rhythm of the music. In the morning, the dancers are back again, offering an opportunity to experience nomadic hospitality and to meet their families. They live at Ongenhid, site of an ancient Buddhist monastery. The monks are gone now, but a few families have made this their home, settling in among the ruins. Hurihu is the father. His wife, Huhihu, is 57, the mother of 8 children. They all live nearby. The oldest is 36, the youngest 16.
Монголын одоо ийм сайхан цагаан идэ ууд сур гэж байна гэ.
Our host offers sagan ida, or white food. It is Mongolian yogurt.
Монголын одоо ийм сайхан цагаан идэ ууд сур гэж.
They also make a slightly fermented alcoholic beverage called arg. It's a summer drink with a 2,500-year-old tradition.
It's not as good as the vodka, but
This is my family. It's my eldest daughter.
Тийм байна.
You have 8 children?
Even though we can't understand each other, it doesn't matter. Making new friends is the same the world over. And then the questions. Why do you choose to live here?
Their parents, they were staying here, and grandparents also.
We asked them if the quality of life has improved over the years.
If we compare it to the older times, he said, it's difficult.
Mongolia is poised for rapid change as it rushes to become part of the 20th century. Will this nomadic culture withstand the forces of modernization? Or will this ancient way of life quietly vanish?
28 настай сайхан залуу. Залуучуудын санаа бодолтой ч гэсэн тэр заншилаа ер нь авч төлөөл гэж итгэлтэй бодож байна.
So both of them are just strongly confident that nomadic culture will not die out. This is just inherited, in our blood, and for thousands of years Mongols were living this way of life, and they're confident in their children. Children will just support their parents, and they will graze the animals as their parents were doing.
It appears that life for these nomads might be easier in the city.
Илүүр хүүхдээ мархгүй л гэж бодож байна. Яасан ч авч ийхээ.
No, they would say that for elderly people, maybe it's easier to live in a city. Right now, they're staying in this place because, he said, because of their children. They have to support them. And if, for example, they go to the city, then they need a place to stay there. And they have to pay the rental and, more and more expenses, which is difficult. And he said, anyway, any person is living for their children, so we will stay here, and it's not a problem for them. And since their children are okay, they're happy.
These people have made their decision and are committed to this way of life. But will their children make the same choice? Increasing numbers of nomads are leaving this life of isolation with the hope of finding better opportunities in Mongolia's capital city, Ulan Bator. When the nomads relocate here with only a horse and their gear, they most likely set up housekeeping on the outskirts of town. In some ways, life is similar to that in the steppe, with few conveniences. The difference lies in opportunities close by, and hopefully, life will be easier for the family. The name Ulan Bator, or Red Hero, is a reminder of the iron-fisted influence of communism. After hundreds of years under Chinese control, in 1921, Mongolia submitted to Soviet domination. 69 years later, in 1990, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, Mongolia chose to become a democratic nation. Westerners assume that the departure of the red flag signaled the beginning of great opportunities for the people of Mongolia, but many hold a different view.
Everything, every my knowledge, maybe 70% of my knowledge, what I have, was given by Russians. And I feel that there are two sides in this event. When Russia left, I can't say that it's now quite better.
It's all a matter of perspective. While in power, the Soviets built an infrastructure which benefited all Mongolians. They set up an educational system and wiped out illiteracy. All Mongolians had access to free health care, subsidized housing, and food from large-scale agricultural projects. And the government began to link the country with roads and communications. Today, the nomads who have come to the city quickly embrace the ways of urban life. The nomadic character quickly fades, and the city must cope with a population explosion. 75% of Ulan Bator is under 35, and the young are becoming westernized. The country struggles with the complex issues of a free market economy. There is a housing shortage. Jobs are at a premium, and the infrastructure is breaking down. To help build a stable economy, Mongolia is now searching for capital from foreign investors. The most immediate solution is to allow access to vast, untapped natural resources, gold, oil, and minerals. But there are environmental concerns.
We need to protect this area and this area.
Dr. Zambin Bachirgol is the father of Mongolia's environmental policy. He's trying to balance the need for foreign investment with responsible land use.
Mongolia really need foreign investment, but the problem is how to find money. It is not, I think, most important problem, but most important problem is how to use those money efficiently, and especially in environmental sound manner, you know.
One of the conditions attached to foreign development rights is a separate program designed to protect the natural environment. And Mongolia has taken that one step further with a bold but risky vision. It will set aside 30% of the country as a national park system and invoke strict environmental laws. But with a budget for administration being a mere $90,000, it'll be next to impossible to enforce any code. And how will this impact the nomads? Will the gold mines and oil rigs turn them into crane operators and wildcatters? Will they abandon their traditional ways for the almighty dollar? This dilemma puts Mongolia at the crossroads. Lake Hovskol, Mongolia's blue pearl, is one of the prime regions that could be changed forever. It's the second oldest and most pristine body of water in the world, and home to one of the last unspoiled ecosystems. The rich biodiversity makes it the freshwater equivalent of the tropical rainforest. This region is home to endangered species. Snow leopards roam the hills. Most wildflowers have yet to be cataloged. $20-pound Siberian trout are common, along with other fish found nowhere else in the world. Scientists are just beginning to discover the wonders of Lake Hovskol. American biologist Dr. Clyde Goulden.
You might even call this a terrestrial Noah's Ark, because it is carrying many of the species that hopefully we will all be able to see then again if we were living here 100 years from now. They may be on this earth because of Mongolia, because of its national park system. If you build a telescope to look at the heavens, you want it in an area where you don't have smog, you don't have city lights. You want a nice, clear sky above you for the telescope. In Mongolia, you're basically looking at clear skies environmentally.
On behalf of Land Rover North America and Land Rover UK, to help Dr. Goulden and other scientists in their studies of Lake Hovskol, Land Rover North America and England's Rover Group have supported a long-term ecological research program. So it's our very great pleasure to be here and to see this wonderful lake. Thank you very much, and we wish you the very best of luck with this research program. How ironic that at the southern end of the lake sits the potential to destroy this pristine environment. This is the winter home for a rusting fleet of Russian oil tankers. These ships carry critical loads of gas and oil from Russian refineries to supply the western regions of Mongolia. The lack of roads in this mountainous terrain make this the only viable route. When the lake is frozen, the oil is hauled across the ice in antiquated tank trucks. The apparent conflict of commerce and the environment trouble Canadian journalist Jim Kenzie.
Well, this is the essential challenge, I guess, facing the people around here. That tanker brings gasoline down from Russia over one of the most beautiful, pristine lakes on the entire planet. And if they don't have the tanker bringing the gasoline down, they don't have jobs. But if they do bring the gasoline down, eventually it's going to leak and pollute this wonderful environment. So it's a challenge which I guess everybody wishes they had an easy answer to.
The unspoiled environment does cause some problems. It is springtime, and the melting snows have reached the rivers, and there are only a few bridges crossing the Solanki.
So hold up.
We have been here.
Yeah.
Chimit has heard that they may be in disrepair and must find a shallow spot to cross. His innate navigational skills have earned him the title Human GPS.
Yes.
We go through the...
We'll soon see.
It is Arhon.
Arhon River.
Arhon River. If not possible in here.
If the river's too deep.
Yes. Then we are try in here.
So we'll just go see the river here and go in,
Yeah.
see how deep it is.
Yes.
And if it's not too deep for the cars, we'll have no problem. But since it snowed and rained, maybe a problem.
Yeah.
Do you want him to get him behind the wheel?
We'll give him a driving lesson.
Chimit hopes to reach Karakoram, the legendary capital of Genghis Khan, by nightfall. But our outdated maps, confusing trails, and few landmarks have stumped the human GPS.
Right hand road. Two road. This one here with Tom we find coming in here. Тэр зоонтой гарч ирэл даваад том зоо байгаа. Юу том зам ингээд авсан байгаа шүү дээ тий. Яг тэрүүгээр чи явсараж байна. Ингээд та юуны замаар би урд нэг хоёр явцсан юм уу? Тийм.
Even the locals find it hard to help.
Jesus.
Genghis Khan ruled his empire from this valley. Karakoram was built in the 13th century. It was destroyed by the Chinese 200 years later. In 1586, Genghis Khan's descendant, Antaisan, used stones from the ruins to construct the first and largest Buddhist monastery, Erdanzu. As many as 10,000 monks once lived within the fortress.
According to the legend, the biggest temple had on the top very big golden statue. When you come across the hills and enter the valley from any side, you could see that golden symbol. It was really big.
The golden symbol is gone. Popular belief holds the Russians accountable for removing this sacred treasure to Moscow.
And most of the treasures of this monastery were in Russia. Some of them were found in Russia.
The Soviet-run government also exiled 30,000 monks to Siberia in an effort to abolish Buddhism. They were never seen again. This is the Gondan Monastery in Ulan Bator. Mongolia is experiencing a cultural and religious revival. The ornate temples are once again houses of worship for the chanting monks. This imposing 85-foot-tall bronze and gold Buddha was erected in celebration of Buddhist independence. Under the communist regime, religious practices were all but curtailed. Soviets destroyed many temples in the process. This pole is all that remains of one.
I was born in socialist time, and at that time we were taught that religion is not for us. But that's a tradition inherited from long ago, and it was not possible to cut this tradition, religion and culture. In Mongolia, religion and culture are very closely interrelated.
And this pole symbolizes the undying spirit of the Mongolian people.
Touching this pole, I feel that something goes inside of me. I don't know, that's a kind of air or some, I don't know how to explain this. That's maybe a ghost or something like this, yeah.
This 1,300-year-old religion is once again practiced openly in the city and back in Karakoram. The monasteries also serve as cultural centers and house paintings called tankas.
A master created the tankas on the sides. And the specific thing about these tankas is that the artist used one single hair of a horse to draw all the details, and he used silver and gold paints.
The artists are long gone, but the art form has survived. Artists in the city no longer practice the nomadic lifestyle, but their art creates a link with the past. Mongolians are well known for this unusual style of throat singing called humi, in which a performer sings 2 notes at a time. The Gobi is one of the world's great wilderness regions. It spreads over 500,000 square miles of unforgiving desert, about 1/3 of Mongolia. For the unwary traveler, it can be unforgiving, and Chimid overestimates the abilities of his Russian 4x4.
I try bike.
I think the best bet is to try to pull them back from where we are.
Maybe to tow them down that way? Very slowly.
He thinks he can drive down.
The Flaming Cliffs lie in the heart of the desert. In 1922, Roy Chapman Andrews, a scientist from the American Museum of Natural History, explored this area and made an amazing discovery: a nest of fossilized dinosaur eggs. This important find proved what scientists had long suspected, but were unable to verify: that dinosaurs were indeed reptiles. Even though Andrews' discoveries excited the scientific community, No other Westerners were allowed to explore this area until the late 1980s. Now there are scientific teams from around the globe digging to unravel more mysteries hidden in this sand. Chimid switches his chef's hat for a paleontologist's cap. Just below the surface lie millions of fossils, the place where Andrews made his important discovery.
The lower jawbone.
This is the skull of a Protoceratops, a peaceful plant-eating dinosaur. Hundreds of complete skeletons have been found at the Flaming Cliffs.
And they're continuing to dig. Is this one of the large, unexplored areas that in the world?
From Mongolia, they were found many unique things which are just not found anywhere else, like fighting dinosaurs, a flock of baby dinosaurs, and embryo. Yeah.
Embryos.
Yeah. So this is, from Mongolia, there were findings which were just unique.
It's impossible to walk on this sacred ground without wondering how the dinosaurs met their demise. There are several theories. Chimid speculates it was a change in climate. Many subscribe to the theory of evolution. Still others think they were wiped out 65 million years ago when a meteor crashed into the Earth. The impact created huge dust storms, obliterated sunlight, and buried the dinosaurs. Whatever the answer, this once tropical region became the desert that is here today. In the Gobi, sandstorms are frequent and unpredictable. Chimid advises against driving into them and stops for lunch.
What do you say, Black Card? Should we stop at the Gare or?
Well, we'll see when we get there.
Well, let's see what it's like when we get close.
This is a perfect opportunity to sample nomadic hospitality, a long-standing tradition of welcoming all travelers in need of food or shelter.
Stops here.
The Gare contains an interesting mix of East and West. Russian cosmonauts and Western junk food.
Making тасалсан гурилтай хоол.
The storm has passed, and the nomads want us to try their Mongolian 4x4s, desert rovers.
Push the flash out.
There is a traditional Mongolian saying,
Avem the battle, olin hünte taynıldı, mörem the battle, olin gazır biz.
while your father is alive, make as many friends as you can. And while your horse is alive, see as many lands as you can. We've made new friends and traveled through this land, in a way, a journey back in time. Observing a world of never-ending skies, people content with living a simple life?
Нэг харсан мэнгэн үснэс дээр.
It's better to see it once than to have heard of it 1,000 times.
Orasına